And so to those individuals, I say this: do not allow that man or any of Congress to steal your joy and steal your pride in terms of who you are and where you live. Welcome to another edition of I Take Your Point podcast. I am John Dunson, joined by my mean co-host, and last name not relevant as always. How are you doing this morning?
Fantastic, as per usual.
Yeah, it looked like you have on some type of feather thing going on there.
It's vegan, don't worry about it. Again, fashion. My life doesn't revolve around you, John. I have brunch, I have things, I have plans, and I have feathers.
Wow, okay, we'll call PETA. All right, so how was your week?
It was fantastic. It was good. Very easy 4th. It was great.
I had an opportunity to again participate in Atlanta's Peachtree Road Race, and it was an event that typically draws about 50,000 participants, and I was fortunate enough to be one of the 50,000.
Awesome.
A good time. Had an opportunity to also partake of some wonderful brisket, which I don't eat that often, so it was enjoyable. The restaurant here local in Atlanta called Fox Brothers Barbecue, which is one of the better barbecue places here, and I typically eat them once a year.
Yes, Texas really believes that you have the best barbecue place. That's amazing.
I didn't say we had the best barbecue place. I said
There, yeah. So that would be like what? Let's see. We would do Jack in the Box and then whatever you mentioned. Yes, I hear you. I'm with you. Carry on.
shady. A couple things caught my attention this week, and we'll get into a couple of issues that you ran into. I don't know why it is that you seem to have problems with members of the audience, but we'll get to that in a bit. I wanted to start with the passage of the big, beautiful bill, as it was called, with this administration. And it was signed on July 4th. I don't know if that was fitting or whether or not that was something that we will come to regret. I think a huge portion of the population may come to regret it. Looking at the bill and looking at the smiling faces that were captured while the shit show was signing the bill, the thing that struck me as odd was, if you look at the majority of the faces that are surrounding him, it's white men who are of a certain age, and there were probably 20 people captured in the photo that I looked at. 18 of them were white men who I would say were 50 plus, and 2 Caucasian females. And I was looking at the smiling of the faces of the individuals as they were signing or watching this bill being signed by the shit show. And it dawned on me that this is a representation of who this party, the Republican Party, is and who it is that they stand for. Unfortunately, the individuals who are going to be primarily harmed by what's in this bill, and I don't think a lot of people understand what's in this bill, going to be individuals who are primarily Caucasian and primarily individuals who are relying on Medicaid to help them make ends meet. And then you juxtapose that with these smiling individuals who are able to carve out a lot of different perks for themselves, and the people who are going to be at the tail end of receiving some of these cuts. What were some of the thoughts that you had in terms of thinking about what we saw transpire this week with the big, beautiful bill passage and the signing?
Yeah, so thanks for bringing that up. There was a lot in there. And so there are a couple of things that were important to me. Those would impact my children. So, everything revolves around them or me. And I'm really concerned about the services that would impact, like the Social Security services, the disability services, taking things away from that. One of the things that's happening here in Texas that's directly impacting us is that the state has moved funds away from the adults with disabilities, so they're unable to do their typical summer program. And so I'm really concerned about that. Some of the other things, I'm sure that I probably should be concerned, but that's front of mind for me, is how is that going to impact my son and his journey.
Yeah, I think when you look at the bill and you look at the components that they will tout, and to be fair, there are some components of this bill that do make sense. If you look at the no tax on tips with respect to the individuals who are servers or work in the restaurant industry, I think that's a good thing, because having workers that are paying tips and that tip serve as their primary source of income, I don't have a problem with not taxing that to a certain degree.
So, look, may I interrupt you because I am always concerned if I agree with anything that comes out of this administration. So I want to make sure that I fully understand both sides of that. So it does seem to be a good thing on the surface, but I like to dig, and see, like, is that a good thing, or what are we missing here? Are we missing anything?
Well, see, this is how I would look at it. So the first $25,000 of tips will be tax deductible. Through the interesting thing is they are sunsetting a lot of this stuff to end in 2028. And the key with 2028 is because that is the election year. So all of this stuff will take place within that 4-year window between 2025 and 2028. So theoretically, they have positioned themselves to say, we are extending these cuts to you. They will benefit you for this period of time. If you don't vote for us, Democrats are going to roll back these benefits. And so they're going to raise your taxes. From that standpoint, they've done something strategically that makes sense. I think the first 25,000 for tips are going to be exempt from being taxed. Now, the interesting thing will be individuals who don't make tips, but make bonuses with respect to corporate America. So you have these C-suite individuals who may get an annual bonus as opposed to a tip. Now, do the bonuses then fall into play? And they said, okay, well, if we're exempting these individuals from being taxed on tips, why can't I be exempt from paying taxes on a bonus that I'm receiving, with respect to my salaried position? I think that's where we're trending with respect to this. So it'd be very interesting to see how this plays out in a couple of years. The other thing that I think was of value in this bill was starting this year up to 25 or $12,500 in overtime pay will be tax deductible. So for those individuals who are working an hourly job and working overtime, they can get some tax benefits there. Those two things are good things. And those are things that I think both Democrats and Republicans and independents would agree on. I think the problem is that when you juxtapose that to some of the atrocities that are happening in this bill, they have a carve out in terms of what we call the SALT deduction, which is state and local income taxes primarily geared toward states like New York, California, New Jersey, where there's high state taxes. Those individuals who live in those states can get additional deductions. The other thing that caught my attention was the car loan interest, deducting car loan interest for buyers up to $10,000 in car loan. And so that deduction, I think, could be a benefit to the average American who is going out and buying a car. And so he or she will be able to deduct some of that. Also, like the senior tax deduction, where seniors are able to deduct up to $6,000 of additional revenue that they're getting after the age of 65. So those are some key things that I think are very, very good with this bill. Then you think about the other components of that. So if you are a millionaire and you have an estate that's over $15 million, you can then transfer ownership of that estate without paying the estate tax. It was originally 7 million, and that was going to be sunset at the end of 2025. These guys were able to raise it to 15 million beginning in 2025. From their standpoint, most of them probably fall into the category where they are having estates that are $15 million and greater. So they're going to benefit from that. So that pass through in terms of the tax exemption is something that they will benefit from. The other thing that I think that will hurt education is the voucher system. I've spent the majority of my career in education. Vouchers originally were designed to help low-income students who were in schools that were low performing be able to go to schools that had better resources, better teacher capacity that would allow them to matriculate through K-12. What we've seen happen is a lot of suburban folks start using vouchers as a way to help fund their private school educations. And so we've seen a huge movement with respect to that, especially in a state like Texas, where you have the voucher program that's a huge part of the education system there. And so I'm going to be interested to see how it is that you take the good parts of this bill, juxtaposed with the terrible parts of the bill, like we talking about the inheritance of the state tax. We also talk about other things that are happening with respect to border security and the increase of ICE agents with respect to border security, or the increase of the funding for that wall that he has been trying to build for the last decade or so. And so I look at this bill as his attempt to essentially roll back a lot of what it is that President Obama was able to pass. President Biden was able to pass with his legislation. And so a lot of this, in some ways, is rolling back some of the key provisions of the bills that they passed, and is a huge giveaway and redistribution of wealth from the lower income to those individuals who really did not need assistance. What say you, Matt?
Well, I say first off, for the Mark Zuckerbergs and the Jeff Bezos, good vote. You did well. Second, you were asking how they're going to juxtapose these two things. I'm thinking we need another season of Olivia Pope in real life. They're going to need to really market this. They're going to need to change the narrative. And I think they do a good job of it. We talked about how they're very effective using the media to deflect, to cause chaos, to have people looking at things that are not important. I think that'll continue.
I think some parts of it, again, I like. I'd be lying to say if I did not like. But I think the parts that bother me are the parts that you're taking away from those who can at least afford things being taken away from them, transferring it to individuals who currently aren't paying their fair share of taxes. I don't have a problem with the savings accounts aspects that are part of this and the cuts with respect to some of the things that we need to take a look at. What I do have a problem with is we're doing that and we're adding $25 billion to defense spending, or we're taking away Medicaid as individuals who are least stable in terms of economically in our society. The irony is that a lot of this is being done in the states that overwhelmingly voted for this administration. And so it's going to be very interesting to see how those individuals respond.
Well, thank you for sharing that because you, as a capitalist, I'm always concerned about why you agree with anything. And so I was like, let me go ahead and do some additional research because I definitely will not be blindly agreeing with whatever you have to say.
You know what? I am a capitalist, and there's a part of this that I'm like, okay, I'm looking at, say, there's a provision in here that's taxing the endowments of large colleges and universities. So, like, you have a university like Harvard or Yale that have billions in terms of endowments. One of the things that they're doing is they're adding like a 1% or 4% tax on some endowments. I don't have a problem with that. I don't have a problem with them paying a portion of that to help fund some of what it is that we're doing. So yes, I am a capitalist. That's it. We're going to be watching to see how Democrats take advantage of it. They're willing to, in some ways, take the fight to Republicans to say, these guys are doing something that is taking away from you and they're putting it in their pockets. It's harming you. It has to be framed in a way that allows Democrats to be on the offensive instead of a defensive.
Olivia, where are you?
Probably behind those feathers that you have going on.
Stop hating on these feathers.
Speaking of hate, you have apparently become the recipient of some things that were said in our comment section. I know that over the course of a week or so, someone even called you someone with a slick mouth. And you were sort of taken aback and didn't know what slick mouth meant. And you did a little research and you were able to find out what did you find out?
First off, that is definitely an 803 bullshit because I did a comprehensive poll of 4 people and no one knew what that was but one person. And so asking that person what that meant, they said it was someone that could be a little bit sassy, that could be, I don't know, whatever. She ended up saying that it's probably a description of me. Whatever, regardless, I think that's some 803 bullshit. So there you go. No one else knew what that was.
So slick mouth is someone who can be a little sassy, who can be a little abrasive and ornery at times, is someone who has quote unquote a smart mouth and is always in the middle of something, always starting some mess. And I would say that pretty much sums you up.
About starting something. I just don't back away from something. You know what I'm
Always
saying?
in the middle of some
No, no,
mess.
no, 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 no. I don't start things. I'm not a Michael Jackson song. I ain't trying to be stupid.
Literally a black Karen.
I will talk to the manager. I am a manager talking fool. I love it. The blaring of it all.
And talking to the manager, I know there was a comment that that got your feathers up, I should say, with one of the subscribers who said something about hoping that your partner, they or she, was receptive and tolerated you. What say you about why it is that people, and it's a lot of women, why do you think you get so much hate from other women?
John, that is very triggering. And I'm thinking that's going to fall into a narrative of men trying to pit us against each other. I find that men that bring that up, they're afraid of the power of women. That's what I think. You
Yeah.
know, that collectively we can move mountains. And so I think there's a concerted effort from some areas of this world, the media, white media, some of our Black men. There's this concerted effort to keep us apart because they're afraid of our unity. So I take offense, sir, at that statement.
Really?
I find that there are plenty of women that enjoy me. There are plenty of men that enjoy me. There are plenty of women that I'm not their cup of tea. And there are plenty of men I am not their cup of tea. So I don't know if there's a disproportionate amount of women that don't care for my brand. I think that that's something that men, such as yourself, like to do because you're afraid of us.
Well, look, first of all, I'm not afraid of you.
You are afraid of me.
No,
Right.
I think that you have a way, is an acquired taste with it. Why even adjusting your feathers? Are they falling off while if your is it still alive?
It can be. Taking flight, John. You're also offended by this conversation.
This is a PG show and you're over here, pulling up feathers. So I'm always interested when you get this pushback from men about you being of a strong opinion. How does that make you feel?
It doesn't make me feel anyway. I have always been of strong opinion. Probably in the womb, I was in of strong opinion. And so, like I said, I don't try and start things, but I am not afraid to get involved with things. And in fact, sometimes I play out these scenarios in my head when I can get involved with it. I do. I am not risk averse or conflict averse. I'm not passive aggressive. I prefer more aggressive aggressive. Just get it out. Got something to say it to my face, as our girl said. Say it to my face.
So again, you have a slick mouth is what you have a slick mouth.
I don't even care for that word. I don't like that turn of phrase.
But your friend who you did reach out to, and she said,
The
no,
only one outside of 803, that was a 313.
but she said what? What specifically did she say when you reached out to her?
I can't remember details of conversations that have no concern to me. I can't. I'm so busy and important in my head. I just can't. I don't have room for that, John.
Remember. And
Me and my slick mouth.
I think her exact words were, after she defined what a slick mouth was, she specifically said, like you have a slick mouth.
You know, I'd love to know anybody else that's ever heard that turn of phrase because I did tell my people that and we laughed for a good hour about the slick mouth. Like, what? Who's ever heard of this before?
So we can either call you Slick Mouth Lynn or
You're not.
Lynn with the slick mouth.
No, you're not going to do anything with any slickness or my mouth.
That's another episode.
You, not on this one, but
Slickness of your mouth. So thinking about what you said in terms of men not being, or men being, specifically Black men is what you said, that can be intimidated by strong Black women or Black women with a strong personality. Why do you think that is?
necessarily know that it's Black men, and I don't know if I said that or not, but I can say that there are some men, and like I'm an equal opportunity life ruiner, so I just don't stay in one area of town, all over the place. That
Ostriches would agree.
So I think that sometimes, and we talked about you being a C player, right? And so there are times where women are like, I'm just not interested in your C playerness. And so you need to find Dora the Explorer, get yourself a little map and a monkey, and get your ass off the couch. Do something. And so when you have women that want to hold you accountable and make you a better version of yourself or make you want to be a better version of yourself, sometimes you want to go the easier route and you're like, I just want to give C work. Well, go find your C work lady because it ain't happening over here.
So the pushback on that could be that it's not that you're looking for C work, but everything doesn't have to be a struggle. Everything doesn't have to be a fight.
Right. So just do what I say and then we'll be good.
So your problem is, and I think we're not,
Well,
I think we,
you're a
I,
triggerer today, aren't you?
yeah, I think your slick mouth is part of it. I think part of the other issue is that do you believe that women who are used to making decisions have difficulty standing back and allowing the man to be the head of the household or the primary voice in the house?
Okay. So that's really therapy. I think that there are a couple of things that go on, right? And so I can only speak for myself and the people that I know that it's also, I think that how you are in the family, like if you're the oldest or the middle or whatever. And for me, being the oldest, there were things that I needed to get done for my brother and sister when my mom and dad were out of the house. And so I was just used to doing. Think that for me, it's challenging to let go of that when I have things that I want done in the order that I want done. And if someone's not on board with that, then again, I'm not passive aggressive. I'm just going to do it or tell you. And then all of a sudden now I'm a slick mouth, overbearing, ostrich wear, feather wearing, whatever.
So what I hear you saying is that you want things done the way that you want them
I
done.
don't necessarily want them done the way I want them done, but I want them done. So if we have a household and we know that there are things that need to be done, we have children, we have household responsibilities. If I'm working outside of the home, you're working outside of the home, we both need to invest in things. And so there's not going to be this dynamic of, well, you're the woman, and so you're going to comb their hair and do whatever. I'm not going to be doing any of that stuff. And have you seen my hair? Why would I be combing anybody else's hair? I'm
Yeah,
not doing that.
you're not a hair comber.
No, no, no. I don't even believe in it. So,
And, and full disclosure, you are the whitest black
uh,
woman that I know.
again, what do you call this venom that you're throwing?
It's
Yeah,
the truth. You just said you don't comb your hair. Next, we'll be talking about you washing your hair.
man, you need to stop.
You'll tell me that you don't wash your hair. Hey,
I do wash my hair. I just don't. I don't particularly care for combing.
how often do you wash your hair?
Gonna be get on with the story. Back to the subject at hand. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, what's going
How,
on?
how often does the slick mouth lady wash your hair? Are we talking once a month?
Well, back at the ranch.
So by not being, you're not a person that likes to be a shotgun rider.
I think that I haven't been a shotgun rider because, and I can say that, and I think we've touched on this a bit, that I have goals, I have ambition, I have a finite amount of time to get things done. And so I don't have time for you to be lollygagging and watching a football game when we got stuff to do. And so we need to get things done. So let's get it done. And then you can go and watch your little whatever you're doing with your running back and your whatnot, so forth, and a Bendigo, whatever you're doing over there. You can do that, but we have things to do. And I think that it's important for partners to make sure that there is equality and equity within the relationship. And, this is interesting because we talked about some of these things about, like this partnership, this soulmate, this whole thing where you're bringing to the table. And I think that that's part of it, right? Having those conversations on the onset of a relationship that these are the things that are important to me. These are the things that I need in order to feel validated, respected, whatever in this relationship. And I think that that's important on the onset and the continuous conversation as you're going through the partnership. I can be very assertive, but I can also be very traditional in things, right? So like I expect if we're on a date and they don't open up my car door, I'm just going to stand there until I guess the Uber comes and gets me if they drive away. There are some things that I'm very traditional with. And I know that that could be challenging for men if they're like, well, you're so assertive in this way, you're so whatever. Why do I need to open the door for you? Because in my world, that is a sign of respect as being a woman that you respect me.
But doesn't respect, would you not agree that respect works the opposite way as well?
I do not. I'm just kidding. Of course I do.
Well, what I heard you say is, okay, it's important for you. Man steps up and understands specifically what it is that you're trying to achieve as a unit, correct? It's also important to you that someone understands that there's a certain time and place to do certain things. You handle your business, and then you leave time to be able to do the extracurricular activities like playing video games and things of that sort, hanging with.
Right.
Do you believe, because you said this to me in a conversation before privately, that Black women expect more from Black men in that aspect, and Black men tend to pull back on it and say, okay, I don't have to do this for you with Becky with the good hair.
So that our private conversations now become public displays of whatever.
No, I'm just because I want to get it on record and because I think it's a one.
I have all kinds of diverse friends. Becky's, I love you. Y'all know I'll see you at
You know,
brunch. If you like 10, 15 minutes, I'll be there with my feathers on.
no, seriously. Do you think, because I think that's a part of the conversation in the culture?
John, do we want to go here?
We're here.
Okay, let's go. I do think that. I do think that in some areas that Black women hold Black men at a higher standard. And we collectively, because there are some people obviously that are edge cases, but the women that I know do hold Black men at a higher standard. And I think that we do it, and I can speak personally because I know you can do it. I know that you're capable of giving me a work. I know this. And so if I'm going to stand for you and I'm going to support you and I'm going to be your biggest cheerleader, I expect you to step up. And that's going to require some effort on your part. So you can't always just sit on the couch and pick lint from between your toenails. You're going to need to get up. And if that means that I am now all of these adjectives with my slick mouth and the whatnot, so forth, then that's what it is. I do think that in some areas, again, girls, I'll be there in like 15 minutes, that I think in some areas that my counterparts are a little easier on our Black men. Maybe I don't know. I don't know. I think that maybe it's the affection, the whatever they're getting. There's a lot of nuance to that. I'm just going to be waiting for these comments to roll. It's going to be my ass on this. I think that it's a different dynamic that sometimes my counterparts are a little bit easier, softer with our Black men, and they will receive that as being supportive. Where Black women can be seen as being nagging because we're holding you to a different letter grade, right? And so supportive is, okay, well, we'll work through this. You'll do it at your own time. I'll hold you down while you do whatever, whatever. Where Black women will do the same, but we're going to go ahead and put a project plan in place. And there's this isn't an ongoing operation. This is a project. So there's a beginning and an end. Let's talk about the end. I'm going to go ahead and do everything that a project requires. I'm going to help you. I'm going to support you. But baby, let's be real clear. There will be an end. This is not an ongoing effort. You're not going to be sitting your ass on the couch picking lint or whatever you're picking.
What is up with you and the men in your life apparently sitting on a couch and picking lint from their toes or playing video games?
They wear a lot of socks, a lot of lint. It's either that or these feathers that are picking something.
The other thing that I think comes out of is when you think about Black women supporting Black men, and I do agree with you. I take your point on the fact that there are some Black men who would say that life is easier for them if they're dating non-Black women in some aspects, easier in some aspects. And that is the discussion that we can have at a later date about what that looks like. And so I will agree with you there. I also would say that there are a lot of Black women who are doing the right thing, supporting Black men, holding them accountable, standing them up, championing them, being the huge advocate for them to be able to excel and achieve those things that they would want them to achieve. And then you have the individuals who are enablers, who see individuals who are Black men, who are in positions of power, who take advantage and abuse Black women. And they abuse Black women.
Interesting.
We give them a pass. And specifically, I'm talking about, we had over the past week the verdict of Sean Combs and him being not guilty of several of the allegations or acts that he was accused. We're totally on opposite ends of the spectrum in terms of, I understand your view in terms of him not being guilty of some things and me thinking that this guy needs to be spending a large portion of his time under the jail cell.
And so I want to just make sure we're real clear. I am saying the crime, So if the crime doesn't fit, you must acquit. You know what
John,
I
yeah.
The crime did not require that. The person, again, he could be canceled from life and I never have to hear his name again. I will definitely keep it out of my mouth. I will be fine with that. But it was the crime that I was concerned about.
So let's put the crime aside because I want to deal with the angle of Black women
I think that's a good one.
enabling this guy.
Really?
Yes, because it was Black men. The individuals who he was paying a paycheck, who were serving at security and saw the stuff going on. At some particular point, do you go, is this paycheck and my livelihood worth the expense of the pain that this individual, this piece of crap, is causing to this young lady? That said, there were also women who were aware of what had happened or what was happening with respect to abuse and did not say anything. Why is it that we protect individuals like that who have this dark, deep past at the expense of the other people that he could potentially harm? Because if we don't say something, then there are other people that could be potentially harmed. Why is it that black women specifically go out of their way sometimes to protect men like Sean Combs?
Know if it's men like Sean Combs, and we've touched on this briefly. I think that Black women, and this is another reason why we hold you in such high regards and we expect a lot from you, is because we sacrifice a lot for you. And, you look at Jonathan Majors. We were talking about Black women that hold men up and support them. He was in a challenging situation, and then he ended up with Megan Good, right? And so a Black woman. I think that we understand the stakes, right? And so he may be a horrible person, but I turn him in. His entire life is upended, not just his, but everybody around him, his children, his family, everything. And so I obviously wasn't there, but sometimes I think that we collectively will try and manage around the bad behavior instead of getting law enforcement or other entities that should be protecting us involved because we know that there's not equity, there's not fairness there. Like, again, this charge of his, that was a reach. And I'll be real honest, I think that the prostitution charge that he was charged with and then being denied bail, I don't necessarily agree with that either. I think that if it had been someone else and they were charged with transportation, they probably would have gotten bail. Right. So I think that, and unless it's a very clear crime, like age or there was coercion or violence, taking someone against state lines, I was real concerned. I'm being real honest because I'm thinking before I go across the Red River again, we're going to need to go ahead and sign a contract because that's exactly the reason why we were going across the Red River. Like all of those things, that's why I was going with my little to-go bag. But if that means now I'm going to be on trial, I'm concerned.
Hold on, let me push back here because the issue, I take your point with respect to his livelihood, but you are in some ways suggesting that his livelihood is more valuable than the livelihood of the victim.
No. And I let me be clear and clarify and confirm that. I do not think his livelihood, I said the people around him and his family that had nothing to do with his actions. So and maybe I did say that and I'll have to clarify that, but I don't care about him. I do care about other people that could be impacted by that. And so I would make a very strategic decision about that. And, of course, being Monday morning quarterback, let's remove her from the situation. And that's an easy thing to do, but who knows what was going on. I just think that we try and look at other alternatives rather than bringing in the law that's not always kind to us.
I get that. I understand that. The problem again that I'm having with this argument is there were people that were in the room who knew that this young lady or the people that were being brought in the room were people that were either inebriated or not of their sound mind to be in that position. And at some particular point, if I walk into a room and I see a young lady who clearly is drugged up or on something and not able to advocate for herself, at some particular point as a man, I go, hey guys, come on. This is not right. This young lady clearly can't give consent to what it is that she or he is doing. So let's be mindful of that. I don't have a problem with freak offs if everyone is in agreement with it. And this
We
is what
don't know if everybody was in agreement with it, John.
right.
We don't.
This is what we do know. This is what we do
There
know.
was a lot of baby oil. We
There
do
was a
know.
lot. I hope he purchased some stock in baby oil. So what we do know is that the majority of his victims were black women. He did not, to at least to our knowledge, have this type of relationship with J Lo and the other individuals
His
who.
ass would have been underneath the jail. If that video was and that's something thank you for bringing that up, not to prolong this conversation, but when I first saw the video of the hotel with Cassie, I said, if that was a white woman, dude, you're done. You are done. And for some reason, because she was a woman of color, well, let's investigate. Well, let's hold on to the thing. And so I agree with you on that. There is something there. And I think that that's a conversation worth having in a longer form. But I do agree with you. I think that there is not the fact that the black women necessarily are enabling him, but I think that the standard, the protection, the whole thing from black men, from society is different when it's a woman of color. I do believe that.
Yeah, I think that's the bigger part that I'm struggling with. When I talk about black women enabling him, what I'm really talking about that.
I don't think that's black women enabling that. I think that's black women living life, right? And so we know where we're at. We don't like it all the time, but we know our place with the legal system, with society, and we don't always get the same protections as the ladies I'm getting ready to have lunch with. Now it's about 20 minutes. Hold on, girls. That we know that. We know that we don't always get that same protection. We see it when a black woman goes missing or a black woman shoots or does something to defend herself. Now there's a lengthy trial. When my counterpart, she does it. Oh my God, I know he probably did it, especially if he was a black man. Oh my God, he did it. But if it's a black woman, well, I mean, she does have a slick mouth, so.
Well, yeah, you do have a slick mouth, but you did bring up another part of it, and we do have the Jonathan Majors
Uh-huh.
saga that happened. And because the person that he was involved with at that time was a white person, I mean, he lost a lot. Almost lost his livelihood
Mm-hmm.
with that allegation
Mm-hmm.
and with respect to what it is that he has done. Now, the irony is, and it shouldn't be lost on anyone, that when he was going through the troubles that he
Mm-hmm.
went,
Uh-huh.
that
Where my sister at?
he then turned back to
Uh-huh.
the culture and his now wife. And for him, again, Jonathan, I'm rooting for you, dude. Megan, I'm rooting for you guys, and hope that you're able to turn your situation into a blessing for others to learn.
Bless her, because let me tell you something that's also going to get me in trouble. That's another thing. I don't think I could ever date a black man whose last relationship was with my counterpart, because you have different expectations. And I don't need you to bring those crazy expectations over here because we're going to have slick mouthness. Like it's just not going to work out.
I'm sorry. So you're saying you would not date a black man who had been dating a white woman?
That was his last encounter, especially if it was a long encounter, because he just has different expectations, I think. And I just don't want to have to be a teacher at this big age. Like, you just need to come whole and grown and not with your lint between your toenails and your video game. Like, I just can't with you, babe.
Shots fired. That's, you know what? We'll end this discussion on that note because you're going to probably piss a lot of folk
I
off
know,
with.
right?
And
Even
so
if the armor of feathers on today.
with your slick mouth, that's your slick mouth getting you again in trouble, Miss Lynn. So as you think about this week and you think about all the things that was going on this week, what is something that stood out for you with respect to some stories?
I think that it really was that passage of the bill, like that was the forefront for me. I did pay attention to the Combs verdict. I thought that was interesting. Other than that, I think those are the two big things that were on my mind.
And we know that clearly what was on your mind was finding some ostrich to be able to defrock to then wear as a top today. So, sad to hear about that with respect
You
to
know,
that.
I don't eat animal, but I will definitely wear them. I'm fine with that.
I think that the big story for me, the one that is most sticky for me, is again the passage of this monstrosity of a bill. And because I know it's going to be a long year and a half before we have another election, almost a year and a half before we have another election, there's going to be a lot of pain. that pain is going to be felt by a lot of folk. We talk about what it means to be American and what it means to be a proud American. And it did not escape me that this July 4th, I was strolling my social media feeds, that you had a lot of folk who were just not feeling this July 4th. They were feeling a little down with everything that was going on with the shit show and everything that happened. And so to those individuals, I say this: do not allow that man or any of Congress to steal your joy and steal your pride in terms of who you are and where you live. You were proud before. There are individuals who disagreed with you, who voted for this administration in office. That's the system that we live in. We have a system where you decide who is going to be your representative and you decide who is going to be your president. Person who gets the most votes is the person who gets to make the rules. That is the society that we live in. If you don't like it, then get out and vote. Get others who agree with you to get out and vote. That's how we change things. We don't change things by putting our head in the sand and going, okay, these guys suck. Well, they do. These guys suck. And I can't believe that they're doing what it is that they're doing. Yeah, you should be able to believe it because that's what they said they were doing. As Maya Angelou said, when someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. Not like your favorite person who says, be best.
I mean, Melania, she does have fashion. Look at her.
That's about all she has.
Well, that's all right. Everybody has to have something.
Anyway, guys, thank you for spending some time with us. We know that you have many things that you could be doing, and we appreciate you dedicating some time to listen to two good friends talk about a myriad number of issues. You could spend your time doing anything, and we're proud that you spend your time with us. To those of you who have subscribed for the I Take Your Point podcast, we appreciate you and we thank you. We are trending in the right direction. This is an experiment that we didn't know if 2 people were going to listen to it. Now we are lucky to have 10 people that listen to us. And if we're lucky, by the grace of God, next week we'll have 15. The point is, again, we're having conversations and trying to figure out some things just like you. We don't have all the answers, but we're willing to have the difficult discussions to make certain that we're understanding as much as we can about the issues. Ms. Lynn, any final words from you?
No, I think that you summed it up. I do want to just add on one little thing. When you're voting, don't just think about the federal, look at the local and state. Those are very important. Thank you, John.
And thank you to the ostrich for sacrificing on your behalf, using your feathers. Guys, again, as you go about your day, do something nice for yourself. And while you're at it, do something nice for someone else. We'll talk to you next time.
Well, thanks for joining us for another lively discussion. This podcast is a production of the SME Media Group, LLC. All rights are reserved. If you like this episode, click on the link in the right-hand corner and check out additional content. Also, be sure to subscribe to the I Take Your Point podcast to ensure you're getting all of your content. Until next time, take care and be well.